The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed like shattered glass under the relentless drizzle, and Elias Thorne slammed the door of the old pickup truck just as the first sob tore free from his chest. His 5-year-old son, Theo, clutched a soggy stuffed bear in the back seat, wide eyes mirroring the storm outside, whispering, "Daddy, is the monster coming back?" Elias's heart cracked open like thunder, because he knew the real monster wasn't some bedtime shadow. It was the alpha who'd sworn love eternal, only to shatter it all with a single, venomous lie. "I never wanted this life with you." Elias wiped his face with a trembling hand, the weight of the duffel bag slung over his shoulder feeling heavier than the secrets it carried. He'd fled Portland at dawn, chasing whispers of a fresh start in this fog-shrouded city. But as he stepped into the neon glow of a corner diner called Rain Shadow Brew, the air thick with the scent of burnt coffee and fresh heartbreak, he collided straight into a wall of muscle and fury. Hunter Blackwood, all 6'4" of brooding alpha intensity, turned with a growl that vibrated through Elias's bones, his storm-gray eyes locking onto him like a predator scenting prey. "Watch where you're going, Omega," Hunter snarled, but in that split second, something electric sparked, a pull neither could deny, even as the rain pounded harder, drowning out the world. Elias stumbled back, his sneakers squeaking on the checkered linoleum floor, the duffel bag slipping from his grip and spilling a cascade of mismatched socks and Theo's favorite picture book onto the wet tiles. The diner fell into a hush, forks pausing mid-air, the sizzle of bacon on the grill the only sound cutting through the tension. Hunter's nostrils flared, catching the faint, sweet undertone of Omega distress laced with something earthier, milk and baby powder, though he couldn't place it. He bent down instinctively, broad shoulders straining against the damp flannel of his lumberjack shirt, gathering the scattered items with hands that could crush stone, but now moved with surprising gentleness. "Here," Hunter muttered, thrusting the book back at Elias, their fingers brushing in a jolt that sent heat racing up Elias's arm. Up close, Hunter was a force of nature. Rugged jaw shadowed with stubble, ink-black hair tousled from the wind, and those eyes, like thunderclouds over Puget Sound, holding a depth of pain Elias recognized all too well. An alpha through and through, the kind who commanded boardrooms in the tech startups dotting Seattle's skyline by day and prowled the edges of the city's underground fight clubs by night. But beneath the growl, there was a flicker, curiosity, maybe even concern. "Sorry?" Elias breathed, snatching the bag and forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Theo's voice piped up from the truck outside, a muffled cry through the rain-streaked window, and Elias's stomach twisted. He couldn't bring the boy in here, not yet. Not until he'd scoped out the place, found a corner booth far from prying eyes. "Rough morning." Hunter straightened, towering over him, the air between them thickening with that primal alpha-omega hum, the one that made Elias's pulse stutter despite the exhaustion gnawing at his bones. "Looks like more than that. You running from something?" His voice was low, gravel rough, like the scrape of tires on wet asphalt. It wasn't an accusation, not quite, but Elias felt exposed, as if those gray eyes could peel back his layers and see the bruises, literal and not, that he'd hidden under long sleeves. Elias forced a laugh, brittle as autumn leaves. "Who isn't in this city? Name's Elias. Just passing through." A lie, of course. Seattle wasn't passing through. It was a lifeline, a grid of coffee shops and ferries and anonymous crowds where an Omega like him could vanish. Portland had been too small, too full of memories. The alpha who'd promised forever, the scent-marking ceremony under cherry blossoms, the way it all curdled into screams and slammed doors when the pregnancy test turned positive. "Kids aren't in the cards for me," that alpha had spat, packing his bags before Elias could even process the fear. Now, here Elias was, 28 and fraying at the edges, with a son who deserved better than a father haunted by what-ifs. Hunter lingered, his gaze tracing the faint lines of fatigue around Elias's hazel eyes, the way his full lips pressed into a thin line of resolve. There was something about this Omega, fragile yet unyielding, like driftwood smoothed by relentless tides. "Hunter," he said finally, extending a hand that engulfed Elias's in a warm, calloused grip. "Sit. First coffee's on me. You look like you could use it." Elias hesitated, glancing at the truck where Theo's face pressed against the glass, small fingers waving tentatively. The rain blurred the image, turning his son into a watercolor ghost. I can't. Got someone waiting. Hunter's brow arched, a smirk tugging at his mouth that softened the hard edges of his face. Someone special, then. Lucky them. But there was no jealousy in it, just a quiet ache that mirrored Elias's own. Hunter Blackwood didn't do attachments. Alphas like him didn't need to. Born in the shadow of the Cascades, raised by a pack that valued strength over sentiment, he'd clawed his way from a rundown trailer in Ridge Valley to a corner office overlooking Elliott Bay. Success came easy. Deals closed with a handshake, rivals cowed by a glare. But love? That was a battlefield strewn with mines. His last Omega, a fleeting thing 2 years back, had left him with scars deeper than any fight ring bruise. A betrayal that soured him on the whole messy business of nests and vows. And kids? God, no. The thought alone made his chest tighten, memories of his own fractured childhood rising like bile. Absent fathers, endless foster homes, the alpha who'd sired him vanishing before Hunter could even walk. Still, he couldn't shake the pull. At least let me buy you a to-go cup. Call it Seattle hospitality. Elias relented, the exhaustion winning out, and they stood at the counter, steam rising from mismatched mugs like unspoken confessions. The barista, a beta with neon-dyed hair, slid over 2 black coffees, her eyes darting between them with knowing amusement. On the house for the cute meet cute. She winked, and Elias flushed, the heat pooling low in his belly as Hunter's laugh rumbled out, deep, genuine, chasing away the chill. They talked, halting at first, words tumbling like raindrops down the diner's fogged windows. Elias spun a half-truth. Freelance graphic designer, chasing gigs in the Emerald City. Hunter shared snippets of his world, coding marathons turning into dawn patrols on his Harley. The thrill of debugging a glitch that could tank a $1 million app. Laughter crept in, easing the knots in Elias's shoulders, and for a moment, the world outside faded. No Theo's anxious waits, no ghosts from Portland, just the warmth of Hunter's gaze and the bittersweet bite of coffee on his tongue. But as Elias turned to leave, Duffel reclaimed. Hunter's hand caught his wrist, gentle, but firm enough to send sparks skittering across his skin. Hey, if you're sticking around, there's a spot by the market tomorrow. Farmer stalls, live music. No strings. His eyes held Elias's, stormy and searching, and Elias felt the Omega in him respond, a soft whine building in his throat that he swallowed down. Maybe, Elias said, heart hammering. He slipped out into the downpour, keying the truck's ignition with shaking fingers. Theo's arms wrapped around him immediately, small body warm and trusting. Daddy, did you make a friend? Elias kissed the top of his son's curly head, inhaling the innocent scent of crayons and rain. Something like that, buddy. But as he pulled away from the curb, Hunter's silhouette framed in the diner's door, watching until the taillights swallowed them in mist, Elias wondered if he'd just invited the storm inside. The days blurred into a rhythm that felt dangerously like hope. Elias rented a cramped apartment above a bookstore in Capitol Hill, the kind of place with creaky floors and views of brick walls etched with ivy. Theo adapted with the resilience only kids possess, his laughter echoing through the narrow halls as he helped unpack boxes, stacking paperbacks into wobbly towers. Elias found work illustrating album covers for indie bands, his laptop screen a portal to colors that drowned out the gray. And Hunter became the thread weaving through it all. Their first real date was at Pike Place under a sky the color of slate. Hunter arrived on his bike, helmet tucked under one arm, a bouquet of wildflowers pilfered from a roadside stand clutched in the other. Figured you'd like these better than roses. Less bullshit. Elias laughed, the sound foreign after months of silence, and they wandered the stalls hand in hand, the alpha's thumb tracing lazy circles on his palm. Salmon flew through the air to cheers, street musicians strummed covers of Fleetwood Mac, and for hours, it was easy. Stories swapped like trading cards. Hunter's tales of hacking his first firewall at 16 met with Elias's confessions of sketching superheroes in high school margins to escape his parents' endless arguments. But shadows lingered. Hunter's aversion surfaced in subtle ways. A stiffening when families picnicked nearby, his jaw clenching at the sight of a toddler's tantrum in the market crowd. Noise, he'd grunt, steering Elias toward quieter alleys. But Elias saw the flinch, the way his eyes darkened with something raw and unspoken. Elias never pushed, never mentioned Theo, not yet. The secret sat heavy in his chest, a stone polished smooth by fear. What if Hunter bolted like the last one? What if this fragile thing, blooming like crocuses through cracked concrete, withered at the first frost? Nights deepened the pull. Hunter's apartment in Belltown was a stark contrast to Elias's cozy chaos. Minimalist lines, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Space Needle's glow, a fridge stocked with craft beer and takeout remnants. Their first kiss happened there. After a rain-soaked walk home from a microbrewery, Hunter backing Elias against the door with a hunger that stole his breath. Alphas kissed like claims, all teeth and tongue and possession, but Hunter's was reverent, exploratory, as if mapping uncharted waters. Elias melted into it, hands fisting in Hunter's shirt, the omega heat coiling low and insistent. They tumbled to the couch, clothes shedding like old skin, Hunter's mouth charting paths down Elias's neck, nipping at the sensitive gland that begged for his mark. "You smell like home," Hunter murmured against his skin, voice wrecked, and Elias arched, whispering pleas that dissolved into gasps. It was slow, then fierce, Hunter's body a landscape of hard plains and old scars, Elias's softer curves yielding under the alpha's weight. Release came in waves, crashing over them with an intimacy that bordered on sacred, Hunter's not swelling just enough to lock them together. His forehead pressed to Elias's as aftershocks trembled through. In the quiet aftermath, tangled in sheets that smelled of salt and sweat, Hunter traced the faint stretch marks on Elias's hips, souvenirs from pregnancy he'd never shared. "What's this from?" he asked softly, fingers lingering. Elias's heart stuttered. "Life," he evaded, turning the question with a kiss. But the lie festered, even as Hunter pulled him closer, rumbling contentedly. They fell into patterns. Lazy Sundays with pancakes and bad movies. Hunter teaching Elias to throw a punch in the empty lot behind his building. Elias dragging him to poetry slams where words hung heavy as fog. Love crept in unannounced, settling like dew. Hunter's texts at odd hours. "Thinking of you. Get some sleep." Elias's nest of stolen flannel shirts blooming in his apartment. Theo remained the hidden star, his drawings taped to the fridge, his bedtime stories whispered in the dark. Elias justified the secrecy with every fiber. Hunter's flinches around children, the way he'd once confessed over whiskey. "Never saw myself as dad material. Pack I came from. It broke more than it built." Elias nodded then, heart aching because he understood. His own parents, liberal arts types in Eugene, had loved him fiercely but fumblingly, their support for his omega nature more intellectual than instinctual. Still, the omission gnawed, a quiet betrayal in the making. It unraveled on a crisp October evening, leaves carpeting Fremont streets in gold. Hunter had planned a surprise. A rooftop dinner overlooking the sound, fairy lights strung like constellations, takeout from a hole-in-the-wall faux spot. Elias arrived late, flustered. Theo's daycare pickup had run long. A scraped knee demanding band-aids and ice cream bribes. He slipped in quietly, but Hunter's alpha senses caught the anomaly immediately. The faint milky tang clinging to Elias's jacket, the exhaustion lines deeper than usual. "You're distracted," Hunter said, pouring wine with steady hands, though his eyes narrowed. They ate in companionable silence at first, the city lights winking below like distant fires, but tension simmered. When Elias's phone buzzed, Theo's daycare with a photo of finger paint masterpieces, Hunter's fork paused. "Who's that?" Elias froze, screen glowing with his son's gap-toothed grin. The lie died on his tongue. "My son," he whispered, voice cracking. "Theo. He's 5. The world tilted. Hunter's face drained of color, wine glass shattering on the concrete as he surged to his feet. "Son, you have a kid and you didn't." "Jesus, Elias." Betrayal etched his features, sharp as shattered glass. The alpha in him recoiling not just from the secret, but from the very idea. Kids meant chaos, meant the vulnerability he'd buried deep after years of bouncing between homes where love was a loan, never a gift. You lied to me. All this time, playing house like some fairy tale, and you hid this. Elias stood, tears hot on his cheeks. I was scared. You hate kids, Hunter. You said it yourself. Not in the cards. I couldn't lose you before I even had you. The words hung, raw and pleading, but Hunter's walls slammed up, impenetrable as Seattle's winter fog. I need air, Hunter growled, storming to the edge, back turned to the sprawl below. Elias watched him, heart fracturing anew, the fairy lights mocking their ruined night. He'd gambled everything on half-truths, and now the house always won. The fairy horn blared across the sound like a wounded animal, cutting through the fog that clung to Bainbridge Island's docks. Elias gripped the railing, salt spray stinging his eyes. Theo bundled in his lap with a blanket patterned in whales and stars. It had been 3 days since the rooftop implosion. 3 days of radio silence from Hunter. Each unanswered text a fresh bruise on Elias's soul. He'd packed them up again, instinct screaming to run, but Seattle had hooks in him now. The bookstore's musty comfort, the daycare teacher's warm smile, the ghost of Hunter's laughter echoing in empty rooms. Instead, he'd fled to the island for the weekend, a borrowed cabin from an old college friend, chasing solace in the pines and the sea's endless rhythm. Theo chattered about seashells, oblivious to the storm in his father's heart, his small hand tracing patterns on Elias's palm. Daddy, will the big wolf come play? He'd asked that morning, fresh from a dream where Hunter, transformed in his child's imagination into a storybook alpha, chased away nightmares. Elias had forced a smile, murmuring, maybe someday, little man, but doubt gnawed deeper than ever. Omegas like him were built for bonds, for the ache of separation that twisted like a knife, but alphas? They could walk away clean, sense fading like footprints in the tide. Back in the city Sunday night, the apartment felt hollow. The nest Elias had half built with Hunter's shirts now a tangled accusation. He scrolled through photos on his phone, candid shots of their stolen moments. Hunter's grin mid-bite of street taco, Elias's head on his shoulder during a midnight movie. Delete? No, not yet. The pain was a tether, proof it had been real. Monday dawned gray, Theo off to daycare with a kiss and a promise of pizza for dinner. Elias dove into work, pixels blurring under his frantic cursor. But by noon, a shadow fell across his desk at the co-working space in South Lake Union. Hunter stood there, hands shoved in jeans pockets, looking like he'd wrestled demons through the night, dark circles under his eyes, flannel rumpled, the alpha scent of pine and smoke laced with regret. We need to talk. Elias's stylus clattered to the table, colleagues glancing over with polite curiosity before burying noses in laptops. Here? Now? His voice was a whisper, laced with the Omega's instinctive plea, but he rose, leading Hunter to the rooftop terrace where potted ferns swayed in the breeze off Lake Union. Hunter paced, boots scuffing the gravel, words tumbling out like an overdue confession. I shut down. Classic me, build walls faster than I can think. But running from you, it's like breathing smoke. He stopped, facing Elias, gray eyes raw. Tell me about him, Theo. Everything. The floodgates cracked. Elias spoke in halting bursts. The whirlwind romance in Portland, the alpha who'd bolted at the news, the lonely nights in a cramped studio with Theo's cries echoing off bare walls. He was unplanned, unwanted by his father, but to me, he's the light I didn't know I needed. Fierce, like you. Draws wolves howling at the moon on every scrap of paper. Laughter bubbled through tears, and Hunter listened, uncharacteristically still, the alpha in him absorbing every detail like code compiling into clarity. Why hide it? Hunter asked finally, voice soft, stepping closer until the heat of him chased the chill. Fear, Elias admitted, meeting his gaze. You flinched at kids, Hunter, like they were grenades. I couldn't risk you seeing me as broken, or worse, a burden. Hunter winced, rubbing his neck. It's not hate, it's terror. The story poured from him then, a dam breaking. The father who'd sired him in a one-night haze, gone before the ink dried on the birth certificate. Bouncing through the system, foster packs where alphas ruled with fists, omegas like his mother ground down to whispers. Saw a kid get hurt once, my half-brother, barely 3. Alpha stepdad lost his temper. I was 10, too small to stop it. After that, kids meant loss. Meant I'd fail them like everyone failed me. Elias reached out, fingers threading through Hunter's, the touch grounding them both. You're not that boy anymore. And Theo? He's not a ghost. He's real, messy hair, endless questions. The kind of love that sticks no matter what. They stood there as the lunch rush hummed below, hands linked, the city a distant symphony. Hunter pulled him close, forehead to forehead, inhaling Elias's scent like a lifeline. I don't know how to do this, but I want to try. For you. For us. The kiss that followed was tentative, a bridge rebuilt plank by plank, tasting of salt and second chances. Elias melted into it, hope flickering like the fairies cutting through the water. That night, he brought Hunter to the apartment, Theo already asleep in his race-car bed. They tiptoed through the living room, littered with Legos and crayon stubs, Hunter's eyes widening at the evidence of life he'd once dreaded. A drawing on the fridge caught him. A stick-figure family. Daddy, Theo, and a big wolf with kind eyes. Hunter traced it with a finger, throat working. He's got talent, Hunter murmured, and Elias nodded, chest tight. The integration was slow, deliberate, like nursing a sprained ankle. Hunter started small. Pickups from daycare, where he'd crouch to Theo's level, offering high fives that turned into giggles. You're strong, kiddo, he'd say, ruffling the boy's curls, masking the tremor in his voice with gruff affection. Theo took to him like wildfire, dubbing him Wolf Daddy, after one too many stories of forest adventures. Elias watched from doorways, heart swelling at the sight, Hunter's massive frame dwarfing the child, yet his touches featherlight, as if handling fragile code. Weekends became theirs. Hikes in Discovery Park, where ferns carpeted the trails and eagles wheeled overhead. Hunter carried Theo on his shoulders, the boys' laughter ringing through the cedars, while Elias snapped photos, capturing the alpha's rare, unguarded smiles. Evenings in the kitchen, Hunter chopping veggies with military precision. Learn this in a group home, keeps your hands busy. While Theo helped, flour dusting his nose, Elias would lean against the counter, wine in hand, marveling at the domesticity unfolding. The way Hunter's eyes sought his across the steam, dark with promise. Intimacy deepened, layered now with trust. In bed, Hunter's knots came slower, more deliberate. His body a vow etched in every thrust, every whispered mine against Elias's neck. But vulnerability crept in too. Nights when Hunter woke sweating from dreams of fists and cries, Elias soothing him with strokes down his back, murmuring, "You're safe, we're safe." Hunter returned the favor on harder days, when Theo's fevers spiked or freelance checks bounced, his alpha presence a steady hum that eased the omega's frayed nerves. Yet cracks lingered, subtle as hairline fractures in glass. Hunter's job ramped up, a merger at his firm demanding 80-hour weeks, leaving him hollow-eyed and short-tempered. One night, after a canceled dinner, he snapped at Theo's spilled juice, the glass shattering like his patience. "Damn it, kid. Clean it up." The room froze, Theo's lip quivering, Elias scooping him up with a glare that could curdle milk. "Bedroom. Now," Elias hissed, depositing Theo with a story and a kiss before whirling on Hunter. What the hell was that? Hunter dragged a hand through his hair, guilt etching deep lines. "I'm sorry. Work's killing me and I don't know how to switch it off." He paced, the alpha's energy coiling tight. "This family, it's like learning to fly blind. One wrong move." Elias softened, stepping into his space, hands on Hunter's chest. "Then we learn together. But you don't get to scare him. Or me." The makeup was fierce, bodies colliding in a tangle of need and forgiveness. Hunter's teeth grazing Elias's shoulder in a mark that healed old wounds. Fall deepened, leaves turning the streets to fire, and their bond solidified. Talks of marking ceremonies under harvest moons, vague plans for a bigger place with a yard. Elias dared to dream. Theo's first school play, Hunter teaching him to code, lazy Christmases with stockings hung by the window. But fate, that cruel dramatist, had other scripts. It started with a call from Portland, Elias's ex, the ghost who'd fled, now circling back with custody whispers and lawyer threats. "I want to know my son." The voice on the line sneered, all false contrition. Elias hung up trembling, the past's claws raking fresh. He didn't tell Hunter at first, shielding him from the storm, but secrets have a way of swelling until they burst. The explosion came mid-November, rain lashing the windows like accusations. Hunter found the voicemail while charging Elias's phone, the ex's voice oily and demanding. Fury ignited not at Elias, but at the intrusion, the threat to their fragile world. "Why didn't you say?" he demanded, voice thunder. "Because I handled it. Always do." Elias's defiance masked terror, Omega instincts screaming to protect the pack. Hunter's eyes flashed, Alpha protectiveness surging. "We handle it. Together." He stormed out, promising to fix this. But Elias knew better. Alphas like his ex played dirty, and Hunter's fire could burn them all. By dawn, the ex had escalated. A restraining order bluff, social services sniffing around Theo's daycare. Panic clawed Elias's throat as he bundled Theo into the truck, fleeing to a motel on the outskirts. Hunter's texts a barrage of worry. "Where are you? Talk to me." But trust frayed, the secrets echo too loud. Had he pulled Hunter into a war he couldn't win? Huddled in the dim room, Theo asleep against him, Elias wept silent tears. Love was a gamble and he'd bet the house, now watching it teeter on the edge. The motel room smelled of stale smoke and regret, the kind that seeped into carpet fibers and never quite aired out. Elias paced the threadbare space, phone clutched like a grenade pin, Theo's soft snores the only anchor in the storm. Outside, I-5 hummed with distant traffic, semis barreling toward destinations that felt impossibly far. Hunter's last text glowed on the screen. "Found you. On my way. Don't move." It had taken him 2 hours. Elias's location shared in a moment of weakness. But now the wait stretched, each tick of the clock amplifying the dread. Headlights sliced the curtains at 2 a.m., and Hunter burst through the door like a gale, drenched from the downpour, eyes wild with a mix of relief and rage. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling Elias into a crushing embrace that smelled of wet leather and desperation. "Idiot!" he growled into Elias's hair, voice breaking. "You vanish like that?" With him. Theo stirred on the bed, blinking sleepily, and Hunter froze, then softened, crouching to ruffle the boy's hair. "Hey champ, Wolf Daddy's here." Theo yawned, burrowing closer, and the sight cracked something in Elias. The alpha, fierce guardian, folding into tenderness. They talked in whispers then, bundled under thread-count-poor blankets, Theo between them like a living bridge. Elias spilled the details. The ex's sudden paternity interest, fueled by a midlife crisis and a new Omega on his arm. The legal volleys that painted Elias as unstable, unfit. "He's got money, lawyers. I can't fight that alone." "You're not," Hunter vowed, hand engulfing Elias's, his touch a brand of certainty. "We'll hire someone. Move if we have to. Whatever it takes." Dawn crept in, painting the room in bruised purples, and they dozed fitfully, a makeshift pack forged in crisis. Back in the city by noon, Hunter moved like a man possessed, calls to a shark of a family lawyer in Pioneer Square, paperwork marshaled with the precision of his coding. Elias watched from the sidelines, Theo at daycare under extra security, the apartment fortified with deadbolts and drawn shades, gratitude warred with guilt. Hunter's world had tilted on its axis for him, absences from work piling up, his boss's emails sharpening to warnings. "You're all in?" Elias murmured one evening, as Hunter pored over depositions by lamplight, takeout containers littering the coffee table. "Damn right." Hunter's grin was weary but real, pulling Elias onto his lap for a kiss that tasted of ink and inkling. "This is us now. Pack." The word hung, heavy with implication. Alphas didn't toss it lightly, not when it meant scent mixing, territory claiming, the bone-deep commitment Omegas craved like air. The X struck back swiftly, A hearing scheduled in Portland's Superior Court, dragging them south across state lines. The drive was tense, Theo chattering from his booster seat about court castles. Oblivious to the undercurrent. Hunter's knuckles whitened on the wheel. The Harley traded for Elias's truck, his presence a bulwark against the rearview ghosts. They crashed at a roadside in outside Olympia, the room overlooking thunderous waves, and in the hush after Theo's bedtime, Hunter marked him. Not fully, not yet, but a graze of teeth on his shoulder that bloomed purple, a promise etched in skin. Court was a battlefield of polished wood and fluorescent lies. The ex, slick in a suit that screamed old money, spun tales of Elias's instability. Late rent payments, solo parenting woes, while his lawyer paraded witnesses like trophies. Elias sat rigid, Hunter's hand a vice on his knee under the table. Theo with a sitter back at the inn. When it was Elias's turn, he spoke from the gut. The love that had carried him through colic nights and fever scares. The omega strength that built a home from scraps. "He's my world," Elias said, voice steady despite the tears. "And I'm his." Hunter testified next, alpha authority rolling off him in waves, recounting their bond. His commitment to Theo as if the boy were his own blood. "I've got means, stability, and love, real, the kind that doesn't quit." The judge, a beta with kind eyes, nodded thoughtfully, adjourning for deliberation. They waited in a coffee shop down the block, steam curling from mugs, Theo's video call lighting their faces with crayon-waving joy. Victory came swift. Full custody to Elias, supervised visits for the ex, a restraining order to boot. They drove home euphoric, windows down, wind whipping through like freedom. Hunter hooped at red lights, Theo echoing with giggles, and Elias leaned his head on the alpha's shoulder at a stop, whispering, "Thank you. Don't thank me yet," Hunter teased, but his eyes shone with something deeper. Pride, possession, the slow thaw of old fears. Winter settled over Seattle like a heavy quilt, snow dusting the Olympics in the distance, holiday lights threading the neighborhoods like veins of gold. Their life wove tighter. Hunter cutting back hours for family nights, teaching Theo basic karate in the living room. The boy's tiny fists pumping with glee. Elias's illustrations landed a book deal. A children's tale of a wolf pup finding his pack, and launch parties buzzed with friends, betas and omegas toasting their power trio. But beneath the glow, Hunter's shadows stirred. Nightmares resurfaced, sharper now, triggered by Theo's innocent questions. "Where's my other daddy?" Hunter would wake gasping, Elias's arms his harbor. But the alpha's resolve hardened, therapy sessions squeezed between code reviews. A beta counselor in Queen and unpacking the foster home baggage. "You're rewriting the script?" she'd tell him, and he'd nod, emerging quieter, more present. Romance reignited in stolen pockets. A weekend getaway to the San Juans, ferrying to Orcas Island where cabins perched on cliffs, waves crashing below. Theo stayed with Elias's sister in Eugene, a rare breath for just them. They hiked to Mountain Lake, boots crunching frost-kissed trails, Hunter's hand warm in Elias's glove. At the summit, breath fogging the air, Hunter dropped to one knee. Not with a ring, but with a raw plea. "Mark me back. Make it official. I want the world to know you're mine." Elias's yes was a sob, their scents mingling under the evergreens, bites exchanged in a frenzy of heat and homecoming. The knot held them through the afternoon, bodies entwined on a blanket, whispers of forever blending with the wind. Return brought festivity. Thanksgiving at Hunter's expanded pack. A ragtag crew of coder buddies and Fight Club pals. Tables groaning under turkey and pie. Theo perched on Hunter's lap, smashing yams with glee, and Elias caught the alpha's eye across the chaos, mouthing, "I love you." Hunter's response was a wink, but later, in the kitchen amid dish suds, he pulled Elias close, murmuring, "Never thought I'd have this. You gave it to me." Christmas dawned white, the city blanketed rare and soft. Gifts piled under a scavenged tree, Theo's robot army, Elias's leather-bound sketchbook, Hunter's a custom knife with their initials carved subtle on the hilt. But the real present came unbidden. A positive test, tucked in Elias's pocket, shared over cocoa by the fire. "Another pup?" Elias breathed. hand on his still flat belly. Hunter stilled, mug halfway to his lips, gray eyes widening. Terror flashed, then something brighter, wonder, fierce and unyielding. He set the cup down, drawing Elias into his lap, palms splaying over the secret life. Ours, he said, voice thick. We'll be okay. Better than okay. Theo, sensing magic, toddled over with his bear. Baby sister? He guessed, and laughter bubbled, dissolving the last ice. But joy's peak often precedes the fall. January brought Hunter's firm a crisis. A hack breaching client data, fingers pointing at his team. Stress coiled him tight, snaps fraying at edges. Missed dinners, curt texts. Elias weathered it, pregnancy nausea his own secret storm. But when Hunter forgot Theo's preschool open house, arriving late and hollow-eyed, the fracture showed. You're pulling away, Elias confronted, voice steady in their bedroom, Theo asleep down the hall. Hunter deflated, shoulders slumping. I'm drowning, El. This pup. It's everything. But what if I screw it up? Like my old man. Vulnerability stripped him bare. The alpha's armor cracked. Elias cupped his face, thumbs brushing stubble. Then we fix it. Together. Always. The promise held, fragile as new snow, until the ultimate test loomed. A betrayal not from without, but within, threatening to bury them all. February's chill bit deeper into Seattle's bones, the kind of cold that seeped through coats and settled in your marrow. Elias felt it acutely now, the early pregnancy a whisper of fatigue and whimsy. Cravings for pickled herring at midnight, Theo's hand on his belly cooing to the bean baby. Life hummed with anticipation. Ultrasounds penciled in, nursery sketches pinned to the fridge, Hunter's tentative excitement blooming like crocuses pushing through frost. He'd taken to leaving voicemails for the unborn. Hey, little codebreaker. Dad here's got your back. His voice gruff but laced with awe, playing on Elias's phone when doubt crept in. Work steadied too. Elias's book deal expanded to a series, his agent buzzing about tours, while Hunter's firm bounced back from the hack. Promotions whispered in hallways. They splurged on a townhouse in Wallingford, a fixer-upper with a backyard big enough for swings and secrets. Escrow closing under a rare blue sky. Moving day was chaos. Boxes labeled in Theo's scrawl. Hunter hoisting furniture with beta movers. Laughter echoing off empty walls. Our fortress, Hunter declared, sweeping Elias into a spin that ended in a kiss. Theo cheering from atop a pile of cushions. But beneath the surface, fissures widened. Hunter's old pack, those Ridge Valley wolves he'd outrun but never escaped, surfaced like specters. A call from his estranged uncle, voice slurred with cheap bourbon. Heard you're playing houseboy, with a knocked-up Omega and a runt? Thought you were smarter. The words landed like barbs, dredging up Foster scars, and Hunter buried them deep, but Elias sensed the shift. The way his alpha's touches turned possessive, edged with something feral. Elias chalked it up to hormones, his own mirroring the unrest, but the real unraveling began with a letter. Slipped under the townhouse door one drizzly afternoon. Envelope unmarked, contents a poison pen. Photos of Elias in Portland, blurry shots from the ex's PI, captions scrawled in venom. Unfit, addict, liar. No drugs, no arrests, just twisted narratives, but enough to chill. Elias burned it in the sink, flames licking paper, but the ash lingered, doubt's acrid taste. He confided in Hunter that night, over stir-fry in their half-unpacked kitchen. Theo finger-painting at the table. It's harassment, probably the ex again testing waters. Hunter's fork stilled, jaw clenching, alpha instincts igniting. I'll end it, he growled, but Elias laid a hand on his arm. Legally, we go back to court, document it. Reason over rage, that was their pact. Yet Hunter's eyes darkened, a storm brewing, and he vanished into his office for hours, screen glow illuminating his furrowed brow. The betrayal brewed slow, then swift. Hunter's firm partnered with a security outfit for post-hack audits, and in vetting, his past unearthed. Not just the Foster files, but a sealed juvenile record. A fight at 16, defending his mother from an abusive alpha, charges dropped but stains lingering. The ex, sly as ever, had tipped off Hunter's boss anonymously, framing it as instability risk. By week's end, Hunter was called in, the promotion evaporating, whispers of probation trailing him like smoke. He came home shattered, slamming the door hard enough to rattle windows. Theo whimpered from his room, and Elias rushed in, scooping the boy up, but Hunter was already unraveling. Pacing the living room, fists clenched. They think I'm a liability. Because of him. Because of my blood. The words spilled, toxic. The uncle's call, the letters echo, his own fears metastasizing. What if they're right? Dragging you and the kids into my mess. Elias set Theo down with a tablet distraction, turning to Hunter with fire in his veins. Don't you dare. We've fought worse. But Hunter's gaze skittered away, landing on Elias's belly, and something broke. Not loud, but profound. I need space, he muttered, grabbing keys. To think. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving silence thicker than fog. Elias sank to the floor, tears hot and unbidden, Theo's small arms wrapping around his neck. Wolf Daddy mad? The boy asked, and Elias choked on a laugh sob. Just lost, buddy. But he'll find his way back. He believed it then, clinging to the vow, but hours stretched to a night. Then two. Texts went unanswered, calls to voicemail. Panic set in, the pregnancy's early twinges sharpening to cramps. A call to the midwife confirming stress. Bed rest ordered. Elias fortified the house alone, blinds drawn, takeout sustaining them, Theo's questions a litany. When's Daddy coming home? On day 3, Elias drove to Hunter's old Belltown apartment. Key still on his ring from Saturdays. The place was gutted. Bare walls, fridge empty. A note taped to the counter. Fixing my head. Don't wait. Love you always. The words blurred through tears. Betrayal's knife twisting deep. Not abandonment, but a fracture born of love's weight. Hunter had chosen flight over fight, ghosts over family, leaving Elias to hold the pieces. He returned hollow, curling around Theo in the big bed, the boy's warmth a lifeline. Calls to friends yielded shrugs. Hunter had vanished into the Cascades. Needing the wild, Elias's sister flew up, helping with meals and morale, but the emptiness echoed. Ultrasounds showed a strong heartbeat, a tiny fist waving defiance, and Elias whispered to it nightly, "Your dad's a fighter. He'll come around." Spring teased with tentative blooms, cherry blossoms dusting Queen and Hill, but Elias's world grayed. Freelance dried up under fatigue, bills mounting like accusations. The ex seized the moment, petitioning for expanded visits, citing Elias's instability with doctored affidavits. Court loomed again, solitary this time, Elias facing the bench with Theo on his hip, voice steady through the terror. "He's my anchor. We don't need more." The judge ruled in his favor, but victory tasted bitter. The empty chair beside him a void. Nights blurred into worry. Dreams of Hunter lost in the woods, alpha howls unanswered. Elias wrote letters he never sent, pouring out the ache. "You vowed no matter what. Was that a lie too?" Redemption's spark came unexpectedly, mid-May, a package on the doorstep. A thumb drive and a letter, Hunter's scrawl shaky but sure. Went dark to heal. Therapy in the mountains, facing the pack I ran from. The record? Cleared it. Job? New gig, remote, for a nonprofit securing data for foster orgs. Fitting, right? I was wrong to leave. Let me prove it. The drive held files. Legal takedowns of the ex's harassment. A savings bond for the baby, sketches Hunter had drawn. Clumsy wolves guarding nests. Elias played it cool, heart pounding, inviting Hunter for coffee at Rainshadow Brew, their origin point. He arrived early, Theo in tow, the boy spotting Hunter across the room and bolting with a yell. "Wolf Daddy!" Arms enveloped them. Hunter's scent enveloping like balm, tears mingling with laughter. "I'm sorry," Hunter breathed, holding Elias close, ignoring stares. "Scared shitless, but I choose us. Every time." Forgiveness wasn't instant. trust a muscle atrophied from disuse, but they rebuilt. Date night sans kids, therapy joint now, unpacking layers like old luggage. The marking ceremony happened under a full moon in Discovery Park. Scents exchanged in a circle of fireflies and friends. Theo scattering petals with glee. Hunter's knot sealed it. Bodies one in the grass, vows whispered fierce. No more running. Summer swelled, bellies and hearts. Theo's swim lessons in Green Lake watched by two dads. Picnics where Hunter read aloud from Elias's book, voice booming with drama. The pup kicked approval, and life felt whole, scars fading to stories. Yet drama's arc demands climax, and there's crested in August heat. A call from the Cascades. Hunter's uncle, dying, summoning the prodigal for closure. Face it or it haunts. The alpha urged, but Elias saw the pallor, the flinch. Go, he said. End the cycle. Hunter returned changed, forged, not broken. Embracing Elias with tales of reckonings and release. Told him about us, about you making me whole. The words healed deeper than any mark. As fall whispered in, leaves turning, their family stood rooted love's oak, weathered but unbowed. Autumn's palette painted Seattle in strokes of amber and rust, the air crisp with the promise of cider mills and crunching leaves. Elias's belly rounded now, a gentle swell under oversized sweaters, the pup inside active as a summer storm. Kicks that had Theo pressing his ear to listen, declaring, "Baby brother's a drummer." Hunter doted with a quiet intensity, hands often splayed protectively, his alpha rumbles soothing both Elias and the unborn. The townhouse thrummed with life. Walls splashed in murals of forests and stars. Theo's room a jungle of stuffed beasts. The nursery half-assembled with crib rails and mobiles of coded constellations. Hunter's touch, blending tech with tenderness. Their rhythm steadied, a symphony honed by trials. Mornings with Theo's cartoons and coffee. Hunter logging in from the home office for his non-profit gig. Elias sketching at the kitchen island. Deadlines met amid belly rubs. Evenings unwound with board games that dissolved into tickle fights. Hunter's laughter booming as Theo defeated him with foam swords. Intimacy wove through it all, slow explorations in the shower. Hunter's mouth reverent on Elias's changing body. Whispers of beautiful, chasing away the insecurities that crept in with stretch marks and swollen ankles. But peace, in stories like theirs, is but the calm before the crescendo. The ex, ever the serpent, slithered back with a venomous twist. Not content with court losses, he dug deeper, unearthing Elias's own buried shame. A youthful indiscretion in college, a beta hookup gone awry, whispers of promiscuity, twisted into ammunition. It arrived via email blast to Hunter's work contacts, Elias's agent, even the preschool listserv. A smear campaign laced with doctored chats, painting Elias as the villain who'd trapped alphas with lies. The fallout hit like a squall. Hunter's inbox flooded with concerned queries, his boss pulling him aside for an awkward chat that reeked of doubt. Elias's book tour invites dried up overnight, agents hedging with image concerns. Theo came home from preschool in tears, a classmate's taunt, "Your daddy's bad," stinging fresh. Elias held him through the sobs, heart shattering anew. But when Hunter walked in that evening, face thunderous, the air crackled. "They think you're, what, some gold-digging omega?" Hunter's voice was low, dangerous, fists balled at his sides. He'd printed the emails, pages fanned on the table like evidence in a trial. Elias sank into a chair, exhaustion weighing like lead. "It's bullshit. Old crap from when I was figuring myself out." He was coercive. "I reported it, but no charges stuck. Buried it deep." Tears welled, hot and furious. "I never told you because, shame, thought it was dead." Hunter knelt before him, hands on knees, gray eyes stormy but steady. "It changes nothing. You're mine. Flaws, fights, all of it." But the alpha's sense spiked with protectiveness, edged with a growl that promised retribution. He vanished into the night, phone off, returning at dawn with knuckles bruised and a tale half-spoken. A confrontation in a Portland bar, words exchanged like blows. The ex's nose bloodied, but the threat neutralized. "Won't bother us again." Relief mingled with unease. Hunter's justice swift, but vigilante. the line between guardian and beast blurred. Elias confronted him over breakfast, Theo occupied with oatmeal finger art. We said legal. What if he presses charges? Hunter's jaw ticked, but he met Elias's gaze. He won't, and if he does, I own it. For us. The conviction chilled and warmed in equal measure, a reminder of the wild under his skin. The smear's ripples spread wider, testing bonds in unforeseen ways. At a prenatal class in Fremont, betas and omegas sharing war stories. Whispers followed Elias, side eyes, hushed tones. One evening, a fellow dad from Theo's preschool cornered Hunter at pickup. Heard things about your omega. You sure he's right for the kid? Hunter's response was ice. A stare that cowed, words clipped. Mind your lane. But later, in the truck, he confessed the sting. Hate that they see you as less. Because of me not protecting sooner. Elias reached across the console, squeezing his thigh. It's not on you. We're stronger for it. They made love that night with urgent grace. Hunter's body a shield. His not a seal against the world's barbs. Elias's cries muffled in pillows as release washed clean. Yet the deepest cut came internal, Hunter's demons rearing in the quiet. Therapy unearthed more. The uncle's deathbed revelations. Hunter's father, not absent by choice, but imprisoned for life after a pack brawl gone lethal. You got his fire, the old wolf had rasped. But don't let it burn your own. Guilt flooded Hunter, sessions turning tear-streaked. His absences growing as he hiked the Olympics alone, seeking clarity in solitude. Elias gave space, but worry gnawed. The pup's kicks a reminder of stakes. Theo's clinginess a mirror of his own. One night, storm raging outside, Hunter didn't return. Calls went to wilderness, and panic surged. Visions of avalanches, alphas lost to madness. Elias bundled Theo into the truck at midnight, driving twisting roads to the trailhead, rain sheeting the windshield like tears. He found Hunter at dawn, huddled by a campfire's embers, eyes hollow. Broke? The alpha admitted, pulling Elias down beside him, Theo burrowing between. Thought I could outrun it, the rage, the legacy. But it's in me. Then we face it, Elias said, voice fierce, hand on Hunter's heart. Together. You're not your father. You're ours. The drive home was a reckoning, words weaving repair. Hunter vowing transparency, Elias promising no more buried shames. They leaned on the pack, friends rallying with meal trains. The counselor mediating a family reset weekend at a cabin near Snoqualmie. There, amid pines and passes, they stripped bare. Not just clothes, but souls. Hunter sharing boyhood horrors by firelight. Elias recounting the college night's lasting echo. Theo built forts of sticks, oblivious, his joy the glue. Fall deepened, harvest moons gilding the sound, and resilience flowered. The smear faded, Hunter's legal team countersuing for defamation. The ex retreating to shadows, his threats hollowed. Elias's book hit shelves, signings drawing supporters who drowned the trolls in cheers. Theo's preschool hosted a family share, where Hunter read a story of wolves and redemption, voices cracking on the tender lines. Pregnancy's crescendo built. Braxton Hicks tightening like warnings, Elias nesting with fervor, Hunter assembling the crib under supervision, cursing hex screws with endearing curses. They chose names. River for a boy, Sage for a girl, dreaming aloud in the nursery's glow. Climax crested on All Hallows' Eve, pumpkins grinning from stoops, when labor teased early. Contractions danced in and out, Elias timing them over trick-or-treat candy. Theo a pirate demanding one more house. Hunter carried the haul, alpha vigilance scanning shadows, but joy reigned, until a sharp pain buckled Elias against a lamppost. Hospital, Hunter barked, scooping him up, Theo trailing with wide eyes. The ER blurred in beeps and bustle, false alarm confirmed. Preterm labor stalled with meds and monitors. In the dim room, Hunter paced like a caged wolf, guilt etching deep, pushed too hard, the stress. Elias pulled him down, lips brushing knuckles. It's life, our pup's fighter, like us. Theo curled on the cot, bare in arms, and in that sterile space, family anchored, vows renewed in whispers, the world's chaos held at bay. As leaves fell, their story poised on love's precipice, tested, tempered, ready for the birth that would bind them eternal. November's embrace turned Seattle's edges soft with mist, the city exhaling summer's heat into a hush of impending snow. Elias's due date loomed like a lighthouse beacon, the pup's arrival a tide they rode with equal parts thrill and trepidation. The townhouse brimmed with readiness. Diapers stacked in the nursery, a bassinet by their bed carved with wolf motifs, Theo practicing big brother duties by feeding his bare bottles of apple juice. Hunter moved through it all with a grounded grace, his alpha presence a steady pulse. Grocery runs for Elias's bizarre midnight pickles and ice cream combos, foot rubs that melted into slow, worshipful touches, his hands mapping the swell of belly with reverent palms. Their love had weathered tempests, emerging burnished and true, but the final trial brewed in quiet undercurrents. The ex's silence shattered with a midnight call to Elias's phone, voice slurred and seething. "You think you won? That alpha's poison runs in the blood. Ask about the brother he couldn't save." Click. The words landed like lit fuses, igniting Elias's buried fears, sleep evading him as he stared at the ceiling. Hunter's snores a distant comfort. Morning brought confrontation, coffee steaming between them at the kitchen table, Theo at preschool. Elias laid it bare, voice steady despite the tremor. "He mentioned a brother. The one from your stories, the hurt kid. Said you couldn't save him." Hunter's mug paused midair, gray eyes shuddering, but Elias pressed, gentle yet unyielding. "No more shadows, Hunter. Tell me." The alpha set the cup down, hands flexing as if gripping ghosts. "Not couldn't. Didn't." The confession unspooled slow, raw, at 12. In a foster den rife with neglect, Hunter's half-brother Jamie, 4, wide-eyed and wheezy from untreated asthma, had wheezed through nights while the alpha guardian caroused. One storm-lashed evening, meds ran dry and Hunter, small and scared, had frozen, begging neighbors, but doors slammed on an Omega brat's pleas. Jamie faded by dawn, lungs betraying him, CPS swooping too late. "Blamed myself," Hunter whispered, voice cracking. "Still do. That's why kids. Why I ran before." Elias's heart fractured, but he rose, rounding the table to pull Hunter's head to his chest, fingers threading black hair. "You were a child. Surviving. Not failing." Tears dampened his shirt, Hunter's body shaking with released sobs. The alpha's dam finally breached. They held through the unraveling. Elias's Omega sent a bomb, until Hunter lifted red-rimmed eyes. "Forgive me." "Nothing to forgive," Elias murmured, kissing salt from lashes. "Just heal with us." The moment sealed deeper than marks, vulnerability the mortar binding their cracks. Winter's solstice neared, holidays twinkling in anticipation, but labor's drumbeat quickened. Contractions teased stronger now, irregular but insistent, Elias timing them during Theo's holiday pageant rehearsal. Tiny elves and reindeer cavorting on stage, his son a beaming snowflake. Hunter sat beside, hand on knee, pride radiating as Theo waved mid-song. But post-show, in the church basement's cookie chaos, a real twinge doubled Elias over, breath hitching. "Time," Hunter said, calm amid the flurry, bundling them into the truck as snow flurried soft. Theo bounced in the back. "Baby now?" And Elias laughed through a wince. "Soon, pirate." Swedish medical center's halls echoed with festivity. Nurses in Santa hats, carols piping faint. But focus narrowed to the labor room, white walls and beeping monitors a cocoon. Hunter was a rock, coaching breaths, ice chips pressed to lips, his scent grounding Elias through the building waves. Theo waited with Elias's sister in the family lounge, video calls flashing gap-toothed grins between pushes. Hours blurred into eternity, sweat and strain etching determination on Elias's face. Hunter's hand crushed in his grip. "You're incredible," the alpha murmured, forehead to forehead, as transition clawed deep. Then, with a cry that rent the air, the pup arrived, Sage, a girl with Hunter's stormy eyes and Elias's dark curls. 7 pounds of fury and wonder, her wail a siren's song. Hunter cut the cord with trembling hands, tears carving tracks down stubbled cheeks. And when they placed her on Elias's chest, skin to skin, the world righted. Hours? Hunter breathed, collapsing beside, arm draping them both, his knot of emotion swelling unseen. Theo burst in minutes later, eyes saucering at the bundle, whispering, "She's sparkly," as he touched a tiny fist. Recovery wove slow and sweet. Hospital gowns traded for homecoming in fresh snow, the townhouse a nest of blankets and visitors. Sage latched fiercely, her omega scent budding soft, lavender and lightning, while Theo regaled her with tales, Hunter hovering like a sentinel, bottles warmed and diapers changed with novice charm. Sleepless nights bonded them tighter, Hunter taking midnight shifts so Elias could rest, his deep voice humming lullabies learned from faded memories. But the Ark's peak demanded one last shadow. A week postpartum, with Sage cradled nursing, a knock echoed CPS, tipped by the ex's final spite, a welfare check on the unstable home. The social worker, a kind-eyed omega, toured the space, noting the murals, the stocked fridge, Theo's artwork. Questions probed gentle. Support systems, birth plans, Hunter's record, cleared, but flagged. Tension coiled, Elias's milk letting down in stress. But Hunter stepped forward, voice even. "We're pack. Flawed, but fierce." He shared, unprompted, the therapy logs, the nonprofit work aiding fosters like he'd been. Sage fussed, and he scooped her up, rocking with innate grace, her cries easing under his rumble. The worker nodded, closing her notebook. "Look solid. Merry Christmas." Door shut. They exhaled, collapsing in laughter tinged with tears, the intrusion a mere footnote now. Holidays bloomed full. Tree trimmed with Theo's ornaments and Sage's tiny bells. Feasts shared with the expanded pack. Coders turned uncles, fight pals as aunts, toasting to survival. Hunter carved the turkey, Elias nursing in the corner, Theo reciting "'Twas the night before," Sage's coos the chorus. Under the mistletoe, Hunter kissed Elias slow, murmuring, "Vowed it then, mean it more now, no matter what." Spring unfurled in their wake, Sage's first smiles chasing snowmelt. Theo's kindergarten jitters met with dual dad pep talks. Elias's series soared, tours balanced with baby wearing slings, while Hunter's work expanded, consulting for abuse prevention apps. Challenges came. Colic nights, teething tantrums, the ex's echoes and nightmares. But they met them woven tight, love's thread unbreakable. Years folded like pages. Sage's first steps into Hunter's arms, Theo's coding camp triumphs under Dad's tutelage, family hikes where wolves howled back at storytime moons. Elias chronicled it in journals, sketches of gray eyes crinkling in joy, hands, calloused and gentle, holding the world. In quiet moments, watching Hunter chase giggling pups through the yard, Elias knew the truth. Alphas didn't hate kids. They feared the heart's expanse. But love, it stretched infinite, teaching even the stormiest souls to shelter, to stay. And so they did, no matter what.